Yeah, that's all it's equality.
It's like fascism if you all have to think the same and write the same.
Yeah,
No.
Which would be an ironic twist for, like, you know,
Yeah, you're
AP
right,
US
you want-
government.
You write whatever you want. They just all get graded the same.
They just all get graded the same. 0. That's a dictatorship.
Or everyone gets 100, it'd still be a dictatorship.
Just
Just be a nice.
be happier one.
You just
Never before seen.
yeah.
In summer.
Oops. Actually, I don't want this page up yet. In May, we'll clear all this stuff out. Left. Wasn't that pretty obvious, Emma, what all that stuff means? Yeah, absolutely. All right, so in May, you know that you will have an AP exam that you're going to take for this class. What date that AP exam is, honestly, I forget. It's mid-May. It'll be a Wednesday, and it'll be in the morning, so you'll get an 8 a.m. test. What's better than AP English language at 8 o'clock in the morning? The test that you take, it's going to be almost 3.5 hours. It'll be 3+ hours. And the way that goes so far as a breakdown is you'll have 60 minutes for AP multiple choice questions, which is what we're going to talk about with your shooting an elephant. You get your little 10-minute, jumping jack, potty break. And then you come back, and it's actually for 2 hours and 15 minutes, not 2 hours. We'll talk about that 15 minutes later, is when you're going to do your essays. So if everything were going, right on schedule, it would be 3 hours and 25 minutes. Chances are it'll probably be more like 3.5 or something like that. So your test will actually start at 8 a.m. You want to go to first period or homeroom. I bet you'll be over in the middle school LGI room. Would be my guess. We're not going to know the details of this until April for sure. But you can go over there, take your test. Weather patterns change every 4 minutes in there, so it could be 90 degrees and humid, and it could be snowing by the time you get to your essay questions when you're in the middle school LGI room. So who knows what will be going on. But you'd be taking your test over there. The test would start at 8 o'clock. You probably would then be finishing up around 11:30, 11:35. So those of you in AP Gov, you come, jaunting back over here. Fourth period that day, I'll be taking a nap, probably right about there, because you won't be here. Or maybe just laying across the tables. Who knows? We'll wait and see. What you were working on yesterday was meant to sort of replicate the AP multiple choice questions. You would not have a passage that long showing up on an AP exam. You wouldn't have something that would be 4 or 5 pages. Maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs at most. If you think of like a typical standardized testing booklet, the way that it would work is you'd have passage on one page, questions on the other. And as you turn the page, there would be a reprint of the passage, and then the questions would be there, which is kind of nice that you don't have that whole page flip thing going back and forth. You can write on the passage as much as you want. You can circle, you can highlight, you can annotate. I highly recommend doing that. You cannot highlight. I think I mentioned we did the TWAs, no highlighters allowed. No highlighters allowed on the multiple choice part. You're going to write 3. We're not worried about those yet. But you'll write 3. So it breaks down to about 40 minutes per essay. And the whole 2 hours and 15 is a little weird. You actually have 2 hours and 15 minutes. That gives you 15 minutes to read them and then 2 hours to write.
Oh, that's why I was
So, and I'll kind of explain why, but probably not till like November for that stuff. But for the multiple choice questions, you get 60 minutes. You're going to be looking at 4 passages with approximately 55 questions. So it breaks down to about a minute per question, but you have to include reading time. And that's the part that gets a little bit tough. So it's reading well, but it's also reading kind of quickly. I wish I could tell you the secret to answering AP multiple choice questions. I have some strategies, and they sound really stupid. The first one is read well, and this sounds overly simplistic, but I think it's true. The better that you understand what you read, the better chance you have at answering the questions. And then the other one is, you want to choose the correct answer. Megan's laughing at me.
I mean, it's true.
It is.
You want to get the right answer.
Well, and here's why I say that, is you want to choose the right answer, and you honestly can't do this all the time, but I want you to choose the right answer as opposed to eliminating incorrect answers. I don't want it to be a point where I'm going to put C because I know it's not A, B, D, or E. That still might work in theory, but I want you to get in the habit of being able to locate the correct answer. This is why I know that it's true. That becomes much easier to do as you read better. And it sounds silly to say read better, but part of that is because sometimes the passages will be complex. I would say shooting an elephant is probably a middle of the road to slightly easier passage. Doesn't mean everything's going to be 10 times harder than this one, but I wouldn't say that this is indicative of like an AP passage per se. So the questions were not pulled from a past AP exam, but they were just kind of meant to replicate those types of questions that do show up. The thing to understand, and this is important probably for a lot of you, because I get a sense that as you folks take, like tomorrow, you're going to be taking your Heart of Darkness test, you're going to have mental tabs going off in your head. I'm 1 out of 1. Nope, I got that one wrong. I'm at 50%, 1 out of 2. Now I'm at a 66.6%. If I get this next one, I'll be at a C. I didn't get this next one. I now have a 50%. 2 out of 4. Oh my goodness, I have to get the next 6 right just to be at a B minus. Better get these 6 right, and then you kind of go in that way. You can't take that approach when you're doing it. Heath must really do that.
No, I just never heard like anyone do that.
Oh, I definitely.
I don't do that.
That's all I do.
I
don't do
just
the
answers
exact
the
math.
questions.
You just accept defeat. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't do the exact math. I was just like, I might have missed like
Last year on Mr. Walking, you just
That's a really like write out the math.
You just to figure out what I think I got.
Essays, we go on a 1 to 9 scale. Multiple choice questions, we go on that 1 to 5 scale. So 5 being the highest, like passing, 1 being the lowest. Little tears of red start bleeding out
No zero.
as you poke your eyes.
So you can at least get 1.
You can at least get a 1.
That's kind of
Always shooting for at least a 1.
That is kind of nice.
So Heath, you don't do this whole mental tabulation while you're taking a test.
No.
Who does this all the time? At what point do you start sweating? Percentage wise, this is bad.
I sweat before I walk into the room. Not even percentage, just like once I get 3 wrong, I'm like, oh god.
I don't know. It's not even always that I'm doing bad. I just like to even if I know the stuff, if I just miss one question, I'm like, wait, so what percentage? It's not always frantic.
All right, so you're at a 2 out of 3. You're at a 67%. Is this bad?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're at a 67%, and actually I won't even put 67. If you're at a 64% on an AP scale, that's going to put you at a 4.
Wow.
So
Good.
2 out of 3, in between 3 out of 5, 2 out of 3. If you are at a 33%, 1 out of 3. You wish. That's a 2. Anything lower than that is obviously going to be a 1. To be a 3, and these are give or take. They can vary, a little bit from year to year and stuff like that. So, plus or minus 1. You're looking right at 50%. 72, 73. So, again, in simplest terms, 3 out of 4, 75%, 5. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5 territory, you're out of 4. So it's a totally different mindset than what you would be doing on a normal test. For your scores that got put in, and some of you noticed this because numbers were kind of all over the place. I add points anytime we do an AP multiple choice. I don't like saying I curve. It's not curve based on performance. It's not, okay, Heath had the best, so that's going to be 100%. Or Alex had the best, so, his 10 out of 15, that's now the gold standard. But I curve curve it to try to meet those kind of percentages, so that if you get a 3, it's a C. If you get a 4, it's a B. If you get a 5, it would show up as an A. So for what we had with 15 questions yesterday, I did a +3. So if you got 8 out of 15, which I think is like 53%, and 8 out of 15, that would be showing up in Power School as an 11 out of 15, which would be a 73%. Now, one thing that you want to make sure, and I didn't release your scores officially to you through Google Classroom, I'll do that later today. I'll release your score. You want to look at that score, and you want to look at the Power School score to make sure that they're not the same. So, you know, if Chandler got a 10 out of 15, it should say 13 out of 15 in Power School as opposed to a 10 out of 15. If I forgot to change it, or like in some cases I subtract 3 because I take personality into account, then you would want to call me on it and have me do the little switcheroo. But generally when we do the multiple choice, it'll be a little Scantron. There'll be the raw score that the Scantron machine puts on it, and then I write on it what your Power School grade is and where it would fall on an AP scale. So, you know, I don't want you going home with 64%, that's a 4, looking good. I got an E on that assignment. That's kind of a hard, you know, spin to make. So that would generally equate to a B, equate to an A, equate to a C, and a D, and then E down below. The secret to them, for as far as I can tell, is practice, practice, practice. So we do a fair amount of them, you know, throughout the course of the year. We'll get better. There'll be some that you really like. There'll be some that you don't like at all. But it's one of those things that we just kind of get a little bit more comfortable with them as we go through it.
So as opposed to curving grades, you equally distribute all of the bronze points to average.
Yes.
I like
It sounds very socialist when you put it that way. I call it scaled scoring. So I scale it to try to fit up, to match up with the AP exam percentages as best as we can. But if we're doing something that is AP multiple choice, you can always know, I can't think of a time that there would be an exception to it, that they'll get scaled so that they better reflect A, B, C, D quality as opposed to 50%, not bad. You know, feel pretty good about that, because it's hard to feel good about that. Unless you're playing baseball. Alright, I purposely had you do Google Form. We don't always do Google Forms for these, because you take your tests on paper and pencil. So most of the time we're going to do it on paper and pencil, which you were still kind of able to do. I wanted to do Google Forms for this one, though, so we could get percentage breakdowns as to, you know, of course, does it count Emma, because she had to be a renegade. But this is giving us percentage breakdown of all the other people that were taking it. So it's not necessarily fourth period percentages. Don't listen to her, Nina. She just like refused to.
Oh, no, I watched her, she was, yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't go all the way.
Oh, that's okay.
So the good news is for number 1, there were only 2 answers selected. Like of everyone who took it, no one selected A, B, or C. The good news is A, B, or C was not the correct answer. So that is definitely a positive. We had 38% went with D, and the rest, the other 62% went with E. So, you know, about a third to 2/3 kind of thing. So we take a look at the first 2 sentences that we have in the passage. In Moline and Lower Burma, I was hated by large numbers of people. The only time in my life that I have been important enough for this to happen to me. Number 1, the very first sentence lets us know
The setting.
where we are at, where our location is. So it establishes the setting, which would be 2. Bad news is both answers include that, so at least we know it's, you know, setting. I was sub-divisional police officer of the town, and in an aimless, petty kind of anti-war European feeling was very bitter. The fact that he was very bitter introduces his attitude towards his circumstances, so that one is included. Correct answer is E, 2 and 3. All right. Number 2. I think this one, this was a 90%, well, it was an 89%. An important thing to notice about question number 2 would be what word? This is usually when somebody goes, oh, thank you. They will, anytime the word accept gets used on an AP exam, it will be in all caps. So I don't want to say like you should never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever, however many negatives, not miss it. But it still does probably happen from time to time for some folks. But they will put accept in caps. I guess it could be a little tricky if you have a situation like this where it comes down to the second line and you miss it. So you don't want someone going, the crowd laughed with hideous laughter. Hey, that seems kind of ironic. That must be the answer because we're looking for things that contain irony. No, that's not the answer we want because we're looking for accept. So of these, which one, which one does not have any irony in it whatsoever? The hope is that we're looking at it and going, D. Perplexing and upsetting. Another Roman numeral question. Chances of you having Roman numeral questions on the AP exam are pretty slim. They've been phasing them out over the years. That makes Emma happy. We still do them.
Yeah, I don't
In chemistry, it was like 17 different.
Well, it's not. It goes to 3.
I can't count.
I can't think of an example where it goes up to 5. I can think of one at the top of my head that goes up to 4. They're normally, well, yeah, but this isn't that. 3 is the norm. But over the last 5 to 6 years, they have really started to cut. Even though it's been longer than that. I was probably saying that 5 or 6 years ago. Probably for like 10 years now. We still use them. It's just a just in case kind of situation. One thing that will not happen is you're not going to have all of these or none of these as an option choice. So you're not going to have A, B, C, and then that all or none. Now you could, with a Roman numeral, have all of the above kind of thing if it's saying Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3. But if the Roman numeral questions are a little bit of a phobia for you, the good news is it'll be very limited exposure to them, if any at all. My guess is the thing that would make number 3 a little bit tricky is going to be which term.
Periodic sentence.
Anyone look it up?
Yes.
In your course syllabus?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
course syllabus had it right there for you. You remember what the definition was?
It was very
Sentence structure.
No, that's
You're thinking syntactic fluency,
Yes,
Yes.
I am.
which means to be fluent in syntax.
yes, I did.
But Megan's finding it. She's using those alphabet skills.
It's like frag.
She said no. Yeah. She beat me to it. So I was going to say no. You want to read it? Periodic.
Periodic sentence that lists the main idea or central complete thought at the end of the sentence after all introductory elements.
So the main subject and the main action occurs at the end. After a long day at school, after going to work, after dealing with my siblings, after dealing with my parents, I took a nap. Would be a periodic sentence. The main element was you took a nap, but you have all these introductory things. It's still a complete sentence. Passive sentences, passive voice could be examples of periodic, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. But the main action, the main actor, all that stuff is going at the end of the sentence with it. Parallel structures, I think we're pretty familiar with it. It's going to be written in parallel form, and then extended metaphor. Certainly after reading, things with the grapes of wrath and whatnot, we're pretty good with that. So within number 3, despite not knowing the term, although again, looking it up on Google, I don't have a problem with for what you were doing yesterday, we have 73% were able to locate it, and the correct answer was, yeah, we do have periodic sentences, we do have parallel structures. It would be B, 1 and 2. Number 4, paragraph 4 includes all of the following except. I was pretty happy with this one because in the past it has been a major kind of bugaboo for folks that 76% were able to get this one right. The part for number 4 where I think people are kind of able, where do we see similes and all that kind of stuff going on? The part that some folks will take a look at, and paragraph 4 is on page 647. This is him, finding the dead body and all that kind of stuff. This was the rainy season and the ground was soft, and his face had scored a trench a foot deep and a couple of yards long. Think about that. Like, trench is a foot deep and a couple of yards long. It's a lot of force that is going onto this person. His face was coated with mud, the eyes wide open, the teeth bared, and I skipped the line that I wanted to read. He was lying on his belly with arms crucified and head sharply twisted to one side. Folks will read that line, they see the word crucified, and they go, that's an illusion. It's not. Illusion's the correct answer, C. If they made reference to, and it looked similar to the crucifixion or reminded me of, Jesus being crucified, or you're calling to a specific event, at that point you would have an illusion. But crucified is a verb. It is a verb that can get used. It doesn't have to be used in right away a religious illusion being made. So I think sometimes you might get a little bit of paralysis by analysis where you're overthinking it a little too much. It doesn't say the crucifixion. It's not capital C, any of that kind of stuff. So in this case, you don't have an illusion in paragraph 4. In the past, that's an example that sometimes folks will use for illusion as opposed to, maybe, are we freezing here? Looks like we are. So we would go with C, illusion. My screen says illusion. Knew that was going to happen.
It's Jesse's fault.
One of the logical fallacies that we didn't go over in CHS argumentation, Josh and Medina and Nina, it's called false cause. We'll talk about in here next week. It's when you think just because A happens before C, therefore A causes, or A before B, therefore A causes B. I'm convinced that when I have my email app open, that causes this to disconnect. And my email app is open, and it's not connecting. I think that's false cause. It is possible, but to go that, hey, that's the cause for it seems to be a little...
Dude.
Then we had the hurricanes coming through right now. So obviously, because we're off time, it's hurricane.
I think it'll be alright. Oops. Yay! Alright. Try to go through these as quickly as we can so that we don't lose stuff. We were at 97% for number 5. Not just 7%, but 97%.
Who was the
Well, do you want to give your answer?
I don't have my paper, so I don't know how to do this.
I didn't
Circle
think
mine, so
that's
I
not
didn't know.
necessary. You can tell mine.
Yeah, I said that
Yeah.
was the same.
Oh, you say that after I highlighted it.
Yeah, I remember that. I was
with the same line.
Me and Jesse were discussing that one. I remember saying unnecessary.
Yeah, we all
Yeah, I was like,
I'm going to go with Heath because he doesn't seem to care when it comes to multiple choice questions.
me and Becky were freaking.
I didn't do it. Well.
You mean you did?
Number 6. This one was a little spread out, but still we were looking at about a 70% clip. And with me putting these percentages down, it is certainly not meant to be, hey, you were that 3% that got this one wrong or something like that. It's not trying to make you go, you should feel bad for it. But if it is something like 89%, 90%, there's a good chance that you probably missed something within the reading, like within the question, like the word "except" for the irony one or something like that. Or you look at it and just go, yeah, I really don't know how to put down B. Now, if there's a case, because this is certainly going to happen, especially in future assignments where you go, okay, I know 85% of you got it right, but I still don't understand why. You have to let us know. There's 11 of us. The nice thing about a class of 11, it gives you an opportunity to speak up and talk without 18 other people starting to try to drown you out. So let us know. Also, you will see some questions as we get going, 20%, 30%. There are questions on the AP exam where, yeah, you're looking about a third of the people get it right. I don't want you to be satisfied with, okay, I got that one wrong, I'm not going to worry about it necessarily, but I do want you to understand that there are some questions that you are most likely going to get wrong. The chances of you getting 100%, when it comes to AP exam, it is very slim. It does happen. There's a couple every year, where people will do it. but it's certainly not going to be an expectation that I'll ever have for you. But you know, based on looking at diction here, we got puppet, dummy, mask. So this would be a person who feels that, hey, if you're a dummy, if you're a puppet, what are you not able to do? Control yourself. So you feel somewhat constrained by his position as Sahib. E would be like the opposite of it because you would not be in control, whereas E is saying that he would be in control of it. Number 7 was a pretty strong one as well. We did get an answer for at least all of them, so that was kind of nice. Yeah, you can. But for number 7, and I would kind of play off number 6, if you're not in control but you know you have to do something, then you kind of have a feeling of resignation. I'm kind of stuck doing it. Here I go. Number 8. 70%, which again, by no means is poor at all. AP style questions, you'll start to notice they don't really ask you what happened in the passage, like put these events in order, but it's more or less asking about how the passage is presented to you, which means there tends to be a lot of syntactical questions, and this would be one of those. This passage didn't have any questions of it, but you'll see a lot of pronoun antecedent questions. It in line 34 refers to, and you have to identify, what that pronoun would be referencing. But you're usually going to get some kind of sentence, some kind of structural thing. So you have the sentence, what word is parallel to caught? If you're really unsure of where to go here, always take a look at the word that you are specifically investigating. Caught, what is it from a part of speech standpoint? It is a verb. Chances are then, if it's parallel, it's going to be parallel to another verb. Specifically, it would be a past tense verb. Now, if you take a look at the options, corpse, reduce, Berman's, Indian in mind, you only have one verb, and it is past tense, so what it's going to be parallel to is caught. It could be or reduced, I should say. It could be parallel in the way that a sentence is written with the fragment, the word choice, but part of speech would always be a thing to kind of look at as well.
So far, I know I have half of them right. Just
Which
for the first
is
page.
not a bad place to be
It's
in.
just because I don't remember what I answered for the other ones.
Emma, your favorite. Roman numeral. 92% though.
Still.
So we're going 1 and 3.
Okay, that's 5, right?
Number 10, I forget who said it, Jesse, if it was you, but syntactic fluency literally means that you are fluent with your syntax. So you're looking at a variety of sentence structure. So that there would be some long sentences, there would be some short sentences that would be going with this one. Now here, we're kind of all over the board. 30% put A, 24% put onomatopoeia, it's 1.6, but 22% put paradox. No one put a simile. Good, that's not the answer. 24% put irony down. So this would be one where, all right, we're not quite as maybe convinced as we thought we would be. We're taking a look at paragraph, this is 11, which is on page 650. When I pulled the trigger, I did not hear the bang. Cross that one off. Or feel the kick. One never does when a shot goes home, but I heard the devilish roar of glee. A devilish roar of glee is an ironic statement that went up from the crowd. Later on, we have like a huge rock toppling, which would be our simile. Listen to the sentences. His mouth slobbered. An enormous senility seemed to have settled upon him. One could have imagined him thousands of years old. I fired again into the same spot. At the second shot, he did not collapse, but climbed with desperate slowness to his feet and stood weakly upright with legs sagging and head drooping. He has a variety of sentence structure. So the correct answer then that we have for this one is paradox. We're finding the examples of syntactic fluency, we're finding the onomatopoeia, we're finding the simile, we're finding the irony. Paradox we don't have. Number 11, I think, was the one. Actually, no. No, 11, we didn't do too bad. 51%. 51.4. This is one historically that I remember over the years that's been low. He was dying very slowly. He was in a, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it right in front of me, but it was as if he was in a whole other world where the bullet where a second shot or a bullet would not be able to damage him further. If the bullet cannot damage him further, it ends up being ironic. My guess would be, and Grant, you were the metonymy person that identified it, I think, when we were going over Grapes of Wrath. I think we talked about synecdoche and metonymy earlier in the year. But just a quick little reminder, because again, most people are going, how do you say those words? Synecdoche was that part of the whole, so I think we said wheels for car, threads for clothes. Conrad would say all hands on deck. Metonymy is when a closely related object you associate with something else. I think you said the White House, the crown, those kinds of things. Point was coming up, you know, could you argue that sometimes products kind of work that way? Can I have a Kleenex instead of a tissue? Or I need a Band-Aid, not a adhesive bandage, you know, for my pinky, where we put in the company names to kind of replace what the actual object would be. And yeah, that would kind of be metonymy in a way. For 12, 97%.
You got it wrong.
Oxymoronic.
Yeah. I think
There's a good chance you got this one wrong. Because we're taking a look at 10.8%.
Yeah, but I got
Okay, this is I'm shocked to know.
No one said slander.
Wasn't the right answer.
No.
Then it would be 10.8.
Yeah, this is true. That would be a 0.
Okay, that's valid.
That did happen one year. I don't think it was this one, but there was one where like everyone got it wrong. And I was like, I hate to tell you, you're wrong. All of you.
One person.
It's like,
Who's your
Right.
Agitate.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I remember putting
I
out.
put
Outrage was at 43.2%. Shocked was 35. Slandered was 0. Offended was 10.8. This is in paragraph number 4. There was a loud, scandalous cry of "Go away, child! Go away this instant!" And an old woman with a switch in her hand came around the corner of a hut, violently shooing away a crowd of naked children. What are switches?
no.
Like a switchblade.
No.
No.
That would be really bad.
Whoa.
Emma? So it's a branch that you use to like beat each other.
I'll say,
If and this is minute details, okay? And this is one of those questions that again I don't want to make it sound like if you're supposed to get it wrong or it's meant to trap you, but it's a real reading between the lines. If she was really mad, like really outraged, what would she be doing?
Beating the
She
naked
wouldn't be
children.
shooing them, which is like chasing them. She would be really hitting them. The best synonym for scandalized, when there was a loud, scandalized cry of, trying to get them away, go away, it's more of a sense of you're agitated, irritated, as opposed to absolutely, outraged that you're going to start hitting them.
Can we go over that? Because is she like just telling the children for their own sake to go away? Because like they shouldn't see the dead.
Hold on. 14 was E, 65%. 15 was A, about 89%. To your point, I think more of the cranky old guy in the neighborhood who doesn't want to on his lawn kind of thing. That in some ways, yes, it might be a sense of protection, so to speak, but Rugrats, get away, get out of here kind of thing. Because we kind of go more with the agitated tone. Because if it's to keep them away, you think it'd be more of a protective idea. but it's kind of hard to. I'm protecting you with my whip. You know, go away. But I would say she's using it more as the the discipline factor. You don't want this coming your way, but I'm not really gonna hit you.
Apparently, Orchid used to do like.
Yeah, we talked about it in AP
Oh,
Gov,
no,
how
no.
there used to be capital punishment and
Corporal.
corporal.
You're not capital's death penalty. I don't think they had
It's a
that.
little different.
Hope-
Capital punishment.